Welcome to the Trust Factor Radio, bringing you interviews and insights to unlock the power of the subconscious mind to create authority, credibility, and trust. With your host, the Authority Architect and best-selling author, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my special guest is Melissa.Bouma. She is the Senior Vice President, Performance Marketing at Manifest. And Melissa possesses expert-level knowledge in client business objectives and available digital marketing solutions with Manifest, and strategically aligns each to exceed client goals and expectations. She is responsible for leading the performance marketing team in all areas of audience acquisition and analysis, including search engine optimization, search engine marketing, paid social campaigns and contests, content syndication, and native advertising campaigns, paid media, email, and CRM strategies. Melissa, sounds like you do a lot. Welcome to the show, Melissa.Bouma.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that I made you read such a long list, but I appreciate you doing it.
No, that is great. When you have digital marketing company like yourself, it's not just the one thing that you do. It is so many things that work together to produce the results. So there are a lot of things to think about for your clients. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and the company Manifest, and also who it is that you help there.
Sure, I would love to. Thank you. So as you mentioned, I'm the Senior Vice President of Performance Marketing, meaning that I oversee our performance marketing teams, which is the team that oversees SEO, paid media, paid social media, and really distribution and channel strategies, as well as data intelligence, which for us is performance reporting, audience intelligence, third-party intelligence, and then data strategies. And then the third piece of that is going to be engagement, which is our organic social. So essentially, most things that people would refer to as digital marketing. The company that I'm with is Manifest. Manifest is actually the largest independent content marketing firm in the U.S., and I've been with the company for about 10 years now. I have such a long tenure with the company because actually one of the companies that formed Manifest purchased my SEO firm in 2012. So that's how I kind of got roped in over here by acquisition of my SEO boutique firm. And now I'm still here and really happy. The clients that we help tend to be those clients that are looking for more performance out of their digital marketing campaigns. So understanding that we're not just looking to cover best practices when we start to think about these things, but really when we're thinking about media, we're trying to help our clients figure out how they can become more efficient, but also effective. When we're thinking about SEO, we're trying to think about how we can help them accrue authority and relevance. And then from an organic standpoint, we're trying to help our clients understand how can they take advantage of those curated audiences that exist in their following, and how can they leverage them to actually acquire more audiences, since we know that paid is a huge component of social media these days. The majority of our clients tend to be in either the health verticals, the travel verticals. We have e-commerce clients, education clients, but I will say that they do span the gap of small to mid-sized businesses up to enterprise. So not too many that we leave out there.
No, there's something to offer everybody, and everybody needs help when it comes to digital marketing, which is something that we all rely on now, and it really works. We go to the internet for our information, so if you're not there and getting found, then you're going to have a problem with your business. Now, let's just go over the actual domain name for a minute. Manifest.com. What a great domain name that you have there. Was that yours, or was that the companies that bought you out?
So actually, my firm was called Search Toppers, and there was definitely some search equity associated with that. But Manifest is the name that we took on in 2016, and so we did go out and have to acquire acquire that domain. But to your point, it was a difficult one to get.
Yes, I'm sure it was, but it is a great one to have. So talk to me more about the problems then that your clients have. Now, obviously, we've got different clients from, the smaller clients all the way up to enterprise, but, what kind of problems are they facing and why do they need your help?
Sure. So I think, the range of problems that they can be facing can be quite broad, but some of the ones that we see come up the most often tend to be, how do I not just get reach to an audience, but how do I get to the right audience members that are actually going to take the desired action or conversion point that we're looking for? Because that's truly what performance marketing is. It's employing digital marketing strategies, but then measuring them based off performance so that you can always optimize towards that lowest cost per acquisition. So that really means in order to do that, you need to get in front of more of a quality audience versus just expanding your reach. So one of the things that our clients tend to come to us for, and more importantly, stay with us for, is that opportunity to identify niche audiences that are relevant to our brands. So instead of just thinking about, in using an example here, how to find millennials, we might be thinking for a specific client, how are we finding millennial first-time moms? And in getting more granular with that actual audience targeting, we can get closer to either that point of action or that point of purchase. And we leverage the different types of targeting attributes available to us in social or different ways in which people might search within the search engines that would show intent of them being a millennial, but also a first-time mom, which is a differentiator, so that we can make sure that the messaging that they're receiving in their first interaction with us as a brand is really going to be something that resonates with them versus just seeing or receiving a brand impression and not having that tie into who they are and where they are in life. So the problems that our clients tend to have are, well, how do I find this needle in a haystack? So we like to find those needles in haystacks for our audience or for our clients and those audiences that are more specific to them. And we do it by a slew of different methodologies. But I think what is important to really think about is, who are you trying to communicate with this with? What would you like them to do? And then what's the differentiator that actually sets you apart to be able to ask that of your audience? And in helping our brands figure out the answers to those questions and then get that right messaging forward, we actually curate that more targeted audience. So that's one of the problems, which is finding a very specific audience. Another one might be that they're looking to do these things in-house, but because of the nature of digital marketing and the fact that platforms are changing and advertising rules are changing and new tools are coming out, having one person in-house they aren't always able to do the work, but also stay on top of the industry. And that's where we found the good tractions with our clients, with either having them bring some of that work out to us, because we do work on such a large business of brands that we are very well up to date on what's happening, but also plugging into who they have in-house and becoming an extension of their marketing team.
Right. It's very hard for, especially the smaller companies that don't have a dedicated marketing department to keep up with just everything that's going on. Like you said, there's always something new coming out, a new platform. And you really have to spend a lot of time studying and experimenting and seeing what works, which is one of the advantages of having a team at hand, being able to do that for them. Talk to me a little bit more about how you get to the heart of that audience, because I think that's one of the most important things that many businesses overlook.
So to the heart of who the right audience is for the brand?
Right. How do you define that?
Well, of course, yeah. So, most of our engagements, not always, but a lot of our engagements will start with an audience development strategy, which is just kind of what we've spoken to, which is identifying who are we trying to reach, what do we know about them demographically, psychographically, from a geography perspective, and then what action do we want them to take? So if we're thinking about a brand that sells a specific solution, so perhaps maybe it's a technology provider and they're looking for IT decision makers. What we like to do is really then go in and say, okay, we're looking for IT decision makers that are in a place to either make or influence the purchasing decision in a company of, I'm going to make something up right now, but say, a company of a mid-sized company that has 500 employees or something of that nature. What do we know about that persona type or that audience member that can help us figure out how we speak to them and then also where we engage them? So that individual might be somebody who's obviously a technology adopter. That individual might be someone who has, not experience, but spends their time updating and engaging in LinkedIn to see what's happening from a business perspective. And they're also likely going to be somebody who's consuming technology content. So in knowing those things, it can help us shape, hey, here's our distribution strategy to where we might find them. That might be inclusive of, a LinkedIn, a Twitter, a content strategy that's syndicated out on technology publications and so on and so forth. We also know that if they're the decision maker, that we need to be able to get to them at certain times of the year. So it's all of those different types of details that we like to outline in identifying that audience individual so that we can think about the how, the what, the where, and then how do we measure it.
So it's very data driven. You have all the data that tells you, who to go after, what they're interested in, and then you create the content around those data points?
Absolutely. So that you kind of hit one of those overused but absolutely important terms that we use in our industry, which is it's data-driven creative as well as data-driven strategy. So taking all of the data that's either owned by the brand or third party, which is something that we can go out and source, which will come from different types of data aggregators or tools or individual research or competitive landscape analysis. So taking all those different data points to kind of put them together to triangulate who is that individual, what do we know about them, and how can we leverage that to our advantage?
So once you've got the audience down and you know how to talk to them, how do you separate yourself from the others in the industry that makes them say, okay, this is the company that I need to do business with?
I think we have two differentiators that I guess I feel strongest about. The first one really comes from our history in that we have 30 sequential years of content marketing experience. I say sequential because we know that everyone can aggregate years, and then, you have these companies with 200s of years of experience, but, the industry hasn't been around that long. We've actually been doing content marketing since the 1980s, and so we are a leader in the space. And I bring that up only because we are pioneers and we know and have led the content strategy and content marketing industry. So we know content. We are on the forefront of it. We are definitely in a place where we feel comfortable saying that we understand content better than most. We do employ almost, I want to say just over 100 journalists on staff, and that comes from our initial our background of being a custom publication company, actually back in the 80s. So we employ journalists on staff. So we make sure that all the content that we put out is of journalistic integrity and also seeks to answer a question versus just having what could be conceived as fluffy content. So we're a little bit different in that a lot of digital agencies were digital first with content coming second as a means to an end. We were actually the inverse of that. We were content first and then digital distribution second. So I think that that's something that sets us apart. Additionally, I think that our approach to performance marketing does tend to set us apart as well because we take a man and machine approach to it. So wanting to make sure that we never automate everything because nothing can take the place of human-driven creative as well as strategy, but also leveraging AI and the machine intelligence that's available to us so that we can be really efficient while also making sure that we add that human touch to it as well.
Hmm. Speaking of that human touch, how important is it for brands to, really put that forward and be seen to be more personal as a company using things like video or podcasting, something like this, to get the message out and answer some of those questions that you were talking about?
I think it's becoming more and more important every day. Just as a society, we are, we're at a place where we want immediate gratification in our questions and answers. We're in a place in time where individuals will tweet at airlines, and they're upset if they don't get responded to. So they really do want those one-to-one connections with brands, making them feel like they actually have a voice. And so, to your point, being able to put out content that is more interactive, like videos, or where communities are managed closely and individuals are being heard, and content is not something that's just high level, but answering very specific questions. I think all of that is going to help breed that brand equity and brand loyalty with your audience, because it's going to make individuals feel, and rightly so, like they're being heard and that brand understands them. And that's when they'll become more loyal. It's not just going to be because of a product or a solution. It's going to be because this brand gets me. That level of personalization is something that's expected in technology, but it's also evolving into marketing. We want to be marketed to individually, one-on-one as the person that we are. And when we have those experiences, we're going to be more apt to take action.
Definitely, it makes you feel special when somebody is talking directly to you rather than a blast to everybody. Melissa, you say this is performance marketing, and all this kind of stuff that you're talking about works together to create the most efficient campaigns. What does that look like for a client? What kind of difference does it make when you implement all these strategies?
Of course. So performance marketing is a fairly new term, although the actual practice of it is not new at all. Performance marketing is really just starting to group all of those digital marketing initiatives that can be measured and that can actually be attributed back to business growth. And so that's ultimately all performance marketing is stripping out some of the more traditional marketing tactics that aren't necessarily as measurable or as attributable as brands would like them to be. So what really is something that pulls all of this together for clients and makes it valuable is their ability to look at what they're doing and show its impact on business growth. Because a CMO is going to want to understand, how is this impacting my reach? How is this impacting the sentiment of my audience? How is this impacting my following and things of that nature? And the CEO, all they care about is, how is this impacting my bottom line? So performance marketing is something that can actually answer that for CEO and say, in this way, and hopefully in this X value times up of what you paid into it.
And of course, when you're collecting all this data, you have something to show them that the results are there. What myths or misconceptions are there about the digital marketing industry that you hear from prospective clients?
Ooh, that's a good one. There's a few of them. One of the first ones that I've heard, or at least seen quite a few times in my LinkedIn feed, is that SEO is dead. SEO is by no means dead. It's just more difficult. When we think about SEO, what is SEO? SEO is, in layman's terms, trying to get your site to rank for terms that you'd like it to be seen for in the search engines when people search for those things. And the two categories by which the search engines tend to group what they are looking at are going to be relevance, how relevant your site or content is to what the person is actually searching for, with authority. So how authoritative are you on that topic? And how the industry has changed is that those are two areas that used to be able to be manipulated. You could make yourself appear more relevant or appear more authoritative. And that's actually not the case anymore. Instead of making yourself appear more relevant, you have to actually be more relevant. So if you want to come up and be high up and visible within the search engines for white iPhone case, I'm looking down and just throwing out an example, instead of just trying to imply that you're relevant for a white iPhone case, you actually need to make sure that you are talking about, providing resource on, and are relevant to white iPhone cases. You should probably sell it. You should probably be comparing it. There should be a lot there. By way of authority, instead of making yourself appear to be more authoritative, you actually have to become more authoritative. You have to get your brand out there. You have to have a social presence. There needs to become a buzz and people talking about you. So I think that's why individuals say that SEO is dead, because some of the more gray or black hat tactics that used to be employed behind the scenes that would work, those aren't working anymore because they were more manipulative than they were authentic. But authentic SEO and really just thinking about how do people search? What is the intent of individuals when they search? What are the different variations? And then working that organically into your content and website strategy, that is always going to work. And actually, that's something that we continue to see success with for a lot of our clients. And when we make recommendations, it's shaped around those two areas.
Right. And I've heard Google, loves brands or gives them preferential treatment maybe over some of the smaller sites because the brand is one of the hardest things to manipulate. You really have to build it. And that's why they tend to get pushed a little bit higher in the searches. Do you see that too?
Yeah, well, that brand equity that you're talking about, that kind of falls into Google's category of authority. So they love brands, but it's not that they love the brands because the brand is a big name and Google is getting some sort of kickback from them. They love brands because they know that there's a level of trust and vetting and, different types of legalities associated with that brand, where that's a trustworthy, authoritative resource for Google to serve up to its consumers, who are the searchers. It doesn't mean that it's always the end-all be-all, but there is a level of trust associated with larger brands that have been validated online that tend to be weighted a little bit more heavily in the search engines. Google would love to charge those brands a cost per click, as opposed to giving them free traffic through the organic search engine. So there's not any type of, in my opinion, there's not any type of preferential treatment going on other than the fact that those brands just carry a certain amount of clout that works really well in the search engine algorithms.
So it's all about building that authority and relevance, like you said, which builds trust in the eyes of Google, which helps you with the ranking. What happens if companies don't do this? If they're maybe sitting on the first page of Google, but they think they're okay, and these other brands, their competition, are doing all these things. What's going to happen if they don't keep up with this digital marketing strategy?
They're probably going to get lapped. There's so much competition on the web, and there's so much content being created on a daily basis. We have some stat, and I think it's some ginormous amount of exabytes or something that's created every day and put out into the web, because brands are trying to do just what we've talked about, which is put out content with the intention of finding audience members and becoming authoritative, but it's actually beginning to get to a place where it's just creating all of this digital junk that exists in our social feeds and in the search engines and in our email inboxes. And I'm sure you experience that every day. It seems like some of the brands that are sitting behind are just getting to a place where they're in a mindset of quantity over quality. And I definitely think we've moved past that. Quantity is still important when it makes sense, when you exist in an industry where the news or the solutions or the competition or, just the very nature of what you do changes rapidly. And so creating content that is in real time makes a ton of sense. But quantity, just for the sake of quantity, is definitely something that's not going to get you as far as it used to. It's more about the quality. Do you have something to say that's valuable that people want to listen to or want to consume? And then that's going to be what's actually going to get people to maintain their visibility in the search engines.
Well, let's talk about some of the clients that you've worked with. Anybody that really pops to mind right now who was a great success story that came to you with a problem? What was the problem? What was your solution? And what was the outcome?
Sure. So one of our larger clients, and they take up a significant amount of my day in a good way, so they're always at the top of mind, is our client CDW. So CDW is a technology reseller. So they actually can't rely on tech invention or product ingenuity because they're a reseller. They actually don't create the product, but they needed to position themselves as experts in the technology space to really grow their business, both on the technology side and then amongst certain business segments that they go after, certain verticals such as small business, federal government, education, and things of that nature. So in order to do that, they came to us to really help them to try to get to a place where they could understand how can we become a thought leader in the space, and they're actually in the IT solution space. So what we did for them was we helped them to develop, and it's been some years now, but these still continue to be successful. I just want to put out the time frame there so it sounds realistic when I tell you what we achieved. It's been a few years. We helped them to concept and come up with 6 different media properties that actually spoke to what was happening in the space, what the innovation was, what the news was, who the competition was in their 6 key verticals that they were looking to identify, which was small business technology, federal government technology, state and local government, higher education, K-12 education, and healthcare technology. And so we have these 6 independent media properties that are, we actually help them to come up with content that is very specific to the space. So maybe talking to the innovations that are happening at the federal level around, IT securities. And that's obviously a very nuanced area, but they have a whole media entity, which is comprised of a website, an email program, social handles, a custom publication that actually goes out to IT decision makers in the federal government. And that has become one of the thought leaders in the space. So for them, we not only help them from a content perspective, but on my side, from a data perspective, it's continuing to find ways to identify those decision makers and get our content in front of them, because finding a federal government IT decision maker, if they can even be found, to be honest with you, it can be difficult, right? It's like finding a needle in the haystack, but understanding where they spend their time, what types of content they're consuming, what they're following through social media, that's our challenge. And we've been successful in doing that. The sites support themselves with about 40 to 50%, depending on which site, organic traffic coming from SEO. There are very healthy 6-figure email CRM lists of individuals who receive their newsletter. And we've been able to show an ROI of, in the past couple of years, they've actually had about $500 million in solutions attributed to the content marketing efforts that we've been employing with them.
Wow, well, that's tremendous success right there. What I've heard from many people and read from people like Jeff Bezos is it's all about that long-term strategy. So it does take years sometimes to get the results that you're looking for, but those results are definitely worth it in the end. Melissa?
Yes, there's always a rollout. Go ahead.
Sorry, I stopped you there. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say there's always that rollout, right? There are gains that you can make as early as the first 3 to 6 months when you're thinking about, what am I relevant for that just needs a little bit of repositioning. And then there are gains that you can make in the first year when you start to get to a place of seeing ROI, when you want to get to a place where you have clout and you become, a household name in a specific industry like CDW, that's where you're looking at multiple years. So I absolutely agree with you. It's about the long-term vision, but I also want to make sure it's clear. There's a lot of traction that can happen right out of the gate. Just as those goals get loftier, the investment from a time and resource perspective also gets a little higher.
Definitely. Well, Melissa, this has been very interesting. It's definitely a strategy that requires a lot of work, but to build a brand and to build that authority and relevancy, you do need a team behind you. So if somebody wants to reach out to you and your team, what is the best way for them to do that?
The best way for them to do that is to go through, to your point, manifest.com, that amazing domain that we have, and just reach out and contact us. Somebody will get right back to them, or if they want to go straight to the woman of many words on this podcast, are definitely more than welcome to email me at Melissa.Bouma@manifest.com.
Well, Melissa.Bouma, she's the Senior Vice President of Performance Marketing at Manifest. Thank you very much for being my guest on the Trust Factor Radio today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to the Trust Factor Radio with Neil Howe. To learn about the resources mentioned in the show and to listen to past episodes, go to thetrustfactorradio.com. To get a copy of the book, The Trust Factor, go to thetrustfactorbook.com. If you are ready to act now and build your authority, credibility, and trust, schedule a consultation with Neil at theauthorityarchitect.com.